Okay. All right. So I'm going to just do a couple technical things, but we're here live with the amazing New York Times bestselling author and columnist for Oprah O Magazine, the amazing Martha Beck.
Guys, how is everyone? Where is everyone?
Well, you won't be able to see it unless you're on Facebook, unless you're actually in the group. But I'm going to go in the group to make sure that we are indeed live. I'm just going to check. So here we go. Let's make sure that we're really live. Oh, yes, we are. Okay. Columnist. All right. So let me do that and that. Just have to do it. Oh, there we are with our echo. Okay. Oh, we've got a lot of people here. All right. We've got Kelly here and Ute here and Danielle here and Diana here and Felice is here and Janet's here.
Woo!
Michelle and Erica. Shalom Alachem to you too, Erica. Kim is here. Oh my goodness. We've just got a whole crowd here. Janice is here and Bianca's here and Titch is here.
Hi, everybody. I wish I could see you. I can hear the names. Liz is telling me the names, but
yes,
I don't have your energy.
You know what, to the right of your screen, or maybe it's to the left on your screen, you can start seeing people posting messages. You can see some of the comments.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
On the chat? I'm live comment. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Isn't that fun? And I can see their names on this end because sometimes it says just Facebook user.
Okay,
so
great.
We have seriously been looking forward to this all month long, Martha. We've all been reading your book.
Oh, thank you.
And why don't you show them the hardcover?
Oh, yeah. Well, the hardcover, mine has some medals on it because they won medals. But the painting, here's the painting.
That is just beautiful.
Of Diana and herself walking out of the forest into the light.
Into the light. Okay, so Martha, do you remember when you came to Sedona?
Yeah.
And how all of those beautiful boars came out and the little babies came out?
I just wrote about that in my next book, which is called The Way of Integrity. And I was driving into Sedona. It was it was late. It was like 11 p.m. And we started filming at 8 the next day because it was like an emergency thing. And I was driving into Sedona, and whenever I go anywhere, I call to animals, and more often than not, I will see them. So I said, I really want to see a javelina. And then I thought, okay, I'm in, it's pitch dark. I'm in filming at 8. At noon, I leave. Like, maybe I'll see one from the car while we're driving out. So I'm in with the amazing Anita Morjani, whose book, Dying to Be Me, will just change your life.
No, it was actually me.
Oh, that's right. We were talking to you.
I was in the room with you, right?
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
And there was a knock at the door. Do I lie? There was a knock at the freaking door. And a video aide goes over and she's like, it's a pig. Javelinas are these beautiful little furry, they're called peccaries. They're not pigs really, but they're like tiny, petite wild boars. So we all ran, and I thought maybe we'd catch the tail end of a javelina rushing off into the desert. This great big male javelina just standing at the door like, you rang. And we were like, he seems, and we're crowded at the window. Then someone opens the door and he didn't move. And then like 20 more came out of the desert, and they all gathered around us. There was a sow who was nursing her little piglets, little striped piglets. They were eating cactus, munch, like right next to us. And I've been to that place a lot, and I've tracked javelinas there, and they don't come up to the rooms and just hang out.
I know, we've been working there since 2012, doing our events there. And that was the first time. I didn't even know they had javelina in Sedona. I had no clue. I know they have them in Phoenix, but not in Sedona. And there were, don't you remember, like the little babies? And it was like this whole, like several packs of them.
It was it's called a sounder. It was a big sounder, a big group of javelinas. And even if there are a bunch of people who've been, I don't know, feeding them, they didn't want us to feed them. They were eating cactus, but they knocked on the door of our hotel room.
I know.
You understand this? We weren't out tracking them, and we saw them. They knocked on the door. So yeah, a lot of encounters with wild animals like that, and it's part of what led me to write this book for sure.
And honestly, you guys, that really, really happened because I was there, Danielle was there, the photographer Sean was there, Martha was there, everybody was there in the room, and we heard this ruckus at the door, and we opened the door, literally tribes just of, they're called, what are they called again? They're
Javelina. Oh, Sounder.
Sounder. Okay.
A group of javelinas, yeah.
They were, and there were different families because then there were little babies, and then there was another group. I mean, I've never seen so many javelina all together.
I lived in the desert for 20 years, and I tracked them, and I saw them sometimes, but my goodness, they're usually really shy. And yeah, there's no explanation except I've had similar experiences. One day I was driving through Wyoming, and I thought, as I set out from the city, I was like, I would like to see a pronghorn antelope. I've never seen one. People don't even know there's an antelope that is native to the US. So I drive for like 5 hours. I'm in the middle of this huge broad plain where you can see big sky country. And I see off on the horizon a little white blur. I've been in Africa long enough to pay attention to this white blur. And it's the dust being kicked up. And it came closer and closer. And as it got close enough, it must have been 5 miles away when I saw it. It was a herd of pronghorn antelope, probably 30 to 40 of them, running flat out. They run 60 miles an hour. They're the fastest land mammal in North America. They ran in this whole empty landscape. They ran straight to my car and stopped and just stood around the car, like panting from the run and just like, you ready? I mean, one time, I am not kidding you, in San Luis Obispo, I did this little group of people. We all went to the beach and did this little seminar, and we all called whales and dolphins. And that day, and we started seeing a lot of whales and dolphins. I thought, wow, this place has a lot of dolphins, lots of whales. I moved there later to that same place. The locals were still referring to that day as the day the whales came. It was the international news, and my friends in Africa saw the broadcast. There were so many freaking whales. The place was filthy with whales. And all this way of calling animals that I've been using since I did research on shamanism a few years back, 10 years back, and just started utilizing some of the things that work for the medicine people of different tribes. And it works. We're connected to all animals. They respond to us.
I love that. I want to learn how to do that.
Because you saw those pigs.
I know you did that because I have never seen them. I'm telling you, and you had shared that with me that you really wanted to see javelina while you were.
Oh, yeah.
That and then there they were. It was
there
yeah, Martha, you're really fun to hang out with. That's all I could say.
I'm telling you, it will be what you never imagined. Like I could now imagine going into the wild and calling an animal and feeling it and having it come to me. It knocked on the door.
I know.
Well, that I could not imagine. That's in my next book.
It knocked on the door, and we've got pictures for you. If you need any pictures, I've got pictures of those bags.
Right,
I should post them. I'm going to post them here. Yeah, we've got
some of them because I didn't get the best pictures because
and Sean, our photographer, also took like little snippets of video. So I'll send that to you guys.
Have it.
No. Okay, so we have so many people watching, and we have everybody talking about the wild. Oh, Martha, we had a raccoon in her backyard. Somebody else wants to go whale watching with you. There's a road runner that visits somebody. We've got all kinds of animal sightings here. Oh,
yes, and they're coming out now because of the pandemic. There are dolphins swimming in the canals of Venice. There are wild boar just grazing in the streets of Spain and Italy. There are deer browsing in the streets of Japanese cities. I mean, the animals and the plants, we take one little break and they're like, hello, is it safe? It's really, that's an amazing thing.
Can we come out now?
Can we be here?
And that is,
or we were first.
I know, they were first. Oh, somebody else had a cardinal. Oh, that's just beautiful. Okay. Somebody also said you did it last summer at London with a wild pack of dogs. With a pack of wild dogs. Londonose?
Oh, Londonose, yeah. Pack of wild dogs. Call a pack of wild dogs. We saw a pack of wild dogs.
Oh.
In London, I'll tell you this story. We have a little red fox who comes to our house now. But in London, I was there with my son, Adam, and he was maybe 27. And we were going all over London. And he said at one point, this city confuses me. And I said, yeah, it confuses me too. The cab drivers take 3 years to learn the streets. Then we go to the Tower of London, and it was the Queen's Jubilee, so it was packed. And Adam looked around, and we had these little earphone things that tell you about the sights of the Tower of London when you go in this whole big area. And we said, do you want one of these? And he said, oh, no, this I remember. And oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention this. Someone just reminded me. Adam has Down syndrome, so it's it's not like you're with your usual 23-year-old man. So he has Down syndrome, and he's always been very magical. And we get into the Tower of London, and he says, yeah, this I remember. And I really disturbed. He said, but the river should be over here. And we looked at what he was saying, and sure enough, there's something called the Watergate. And it was where the river originally was, but they filled in and moved the river back, like in the 18th century. Wow. So, okay, so you remember it being here? He goes, mm-hmm. You can't really understand Adam's speech. He's it's very hard for him to articulate. So I said, well, when were you in London? When were you here? And he said, 1658. We were like, what? I didn't even know he knew years.
Oh my God.
So then, long story short, I leave him with the other person who's with us, Karen. And I went in to see some museum or something, and I heard this big ruckus outside, and I came out, and what had happened was that Adam and Karen sat down on a bench in this crowded place in the middle of the afternoon, and out of a bush had leapt this little red fox, and he ran to these ravens, and they got very excited. The court ravens started alarming, and then people started screaming and running around, and the fox ran all through the crowd, and then he ran up to the bench where Adam and Karen were sitting, and he sat down and he stared at Adam. He stared at him. And then somebody else went, and the fox took off into a hedge, and Adam turned to Karen and he said, I know that fox. So yeah, there's a lot of magic in the world, you guys, and it's very real. And the only thing that keeps us from experiencing it is that our culture keeps us from imagining what we'd like to believe. And this book is actually, I wrote it as fiction so that I could write down everything that really happens. And then people could say, you're crazy. And I'd say, oh, no, it's fiction. But it's not.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So we have a bunch of questions that people have written in. And for those of you that didn't write in your questions, because I did a Facebook post, and for those of you that did respond, don't rewrite your questions because I have it. But for those of you that didn't ask a question, go ahead and post a question if you want. But I'm going to go ahead and grab my questions for Martha Beck sheet here. And we're going to start asking questions. Okay, so first question is by Janie Nobles. Actually had 3 questions, and they're so good that I want to ask all of them. So the first question is, where did Diana go during her lost time?
So you all know the spoiler at the end. The lost time was when her human psychology couldn't handle the overload of being a goddess, because there was just too much power in there. So what would happen is she'd become the goddess. And that's why she wrote in Greek on her own card, know thyself, in Greek, because she was writing as the goddess. And then when she came back to herself as a human, she couldn't remember it. So it was like a fugue state, but she was really just being overwhelmed by her whole self.
So was she going into other dimensions?
The way I saw it was that there was all this energy. There's energy. We all exist as an energy state inside a physical body, right? When we're dead, there's no more energy here. There's lots of energy when we're alive, and it's not just the matter. So there's a ghost in the machine. There's consciousness within the matter. And in her case, I was picturing it as electromagnetic wavelengths of energy. And basically, it's just that there was so much in her because they put the whole goddess Diana into a single, perfectly average representational human form. But the electricity kept fritzing out because the mechanism was just barely capable of handling that level of load. So it was like a light bulb that gets too much electricity in it and goes you know. So that was my image of it. And then it would like bring itself back online. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Okay. I'm flipping back and forth to my document here. Okay. Why did she go back to the one who hurt her?
Well,
yeah.
Diana represents the divine feminine, and the whole idea that she was a little brown baby thrown away, a female baby thrown away, was my way of saying this is what our culture does with the divine feminine. And what you get when you're born and raised that way, and I believe every woman has it, every person of color has it, and a lot of people who are like binary or in any way different, they all end up doing this. We think of ourselves as inferior because the culture teaches us to be inferior, and we see the culture and its representations as godlike because they tell us that they're godlike. So she's fixated on what our culture considers the very top of the success pile, you know, the brilliant, muscular, strong, powerful, famous, rich man, white man. So he's the representation of the meritocracy of the whole world. She's at the bottom. And her ego fixation is that she doesn't realize she's his equal. She doesn't realize that he's not the god. And she certainly doesn't realize that she's a goddess, right? So she's got that warped perception that we all get from culture that says some people are inferior to others. And it is her ego. She's damaged. The whole book is about her getting through her damaged ego to a realization of what she truly is. Yeah.
Love that. Okay. The bees is the best part. Okay. Read the book when it first came out. Okay, no, that wasn't a question. Okay, so next question is, this is from Michelle. I am curious who or what Gusman represents, other than being a slimy little creep.
Yeah, he's sort of mid-level management. He's like, have you ever heard the phrase, sorry for any guys on the line, God grant me the confidence of a mediocre white man? He's meant to represent the essence. And I don't want to be anti-male in this because there are some very positive male characters. And the next book is about a male character who is wonderful. But Gusman is just your typical mid-level manager who thinks he's on top of the world because his culture sort of puts him above people, even though he doesn't really deserve it. So yeah, the whole thing is a metaphor for culture. It's also a metaphor for each of our psychologies. In each of us, there's a broken baby that's been thrown away. And in each of us, there's someone desperate to be that successful emblem of all our culture honors. It's in each of us, and we have to break through it, every single one of us. And ultimately, I think all of us at once. That'd be nice. That'd be cool.
Yes, that'd be very cool. I have to tell you, and I shared this with Martha at the beginning of our conversation. This is one of the best books I've ever read.
Wow.
I've read a lot, because this is exactly, what I do. I work with authors. I work with writers for the past 25 years. And it is so beautiful. It is so beautifully written. The story, it grabs you, the teachings, everything. Okay. All right. So Roy is disgusted. Oh, this is interesting. This is from Joanne. Roy is disgusted by feet. What does this symbolize? Is the fact he goes crazy because he ran out of drugs, or does it symbolize something more than that?
Yeah, he's disgusted by feet because the place where we connect with the earth is our feet. And traditional people who go without shoes, the connection to the earth is felt with the feet. And so one of the things I learned to do from medicine people was to walk barefoot in the forest. Even though my tootsies were very raw at first, but I learned quickly that you have a feel for the earth when you're walking on it, when your skin is touching it. And he can't handle that. He's all about culture and separation from nature. And he goes crazy because, yes, he's been doing all these drugs to pump himself up. So he is tall and strong and handsome and all those things, but he's done a lot of stuff to augment it. He's giving himself Botox, even in the forest. He's taking a lot of steroids, so his muscles are big. He's taking, what do they call it, so he can get it up?
oh, yay, Viagra. Yes.
Viagra, because he's gotten past his prime. He's gotten to be 45, 46, and instead of just getting stronger all the time, he's starting to fade. And that for malignant narcissists is a very challenging time, and they tend to do a lot to build themselves up. But things like androgens and other steroids and some of the stuff he's taking to stay calm or whatever, he wants to be like always energetic. He's on Adderall. And if you blend all these drugs and then you cut them all off, you do go crazy. So one of the things I wanted to say is we go crazy on all the substances and all the ideas that the culture feeds us. And then if it's taken from us, and it has been by the pandemic, so much has been just cut off. Our supply of stimulation, activity, bright lights, big city. And he goes crazy, because that's what happens when you live that way. You go crazy.
Wow. I love that. Okay. So somebody just very spontaneously on Facebook asked, why did she not stay with the bees? That was.
I love the bee one, because that, I will tell you, and people have recognized this. I didn't think they would. Of all the chapters in the book, the bee chapter is the one that I just wrote down flat out from my own experience, except that I wasn't covered in bees. I was, however, high on mushrooms.
Well, there you go. You could have been covered in bees, right? Metaphorically.
Yeah, I was doing a shamanic ceremony with a Peruvian shaman who gave me, and my question was, what would society look like if everyone were enlightened? If everyone lived like the Buddha or like Jesus or whatever. And I took these mushrooms and I got sucked into a hive of bees, and I went down to the same size as a bee, and I was surrounded by hundreds of thousands of bees, freaking out, couldn't get out of the being there. And they were feeling me all over. And then I started to realize that I could feel an emotion, like there was joy. And then I could tell they were laughing. And then I could start to understand this telepathic communication where they were saying, oh my gosh, it has no wings. And my shoulders were jerking back like this, like they were checking me to see, no wings. How does it sing? It has no wings. How does it sing? And then one of them said, oh my God, it sings with its mouth parts. And one of the others goes, how does it eat with its butt? And they called me guts on sticks. They thought it was so gross not to have an exoskeleton, but gradually they accepted me. And I started to feel these waves of love and empathy going out. And after I had that experience, I came out and they told me all the things they told Diana, they told me. I promise you, I didn't make a thing up except from that state. And I started doing research on bees, and I found out that in every culture where bees are kept, people who work with the bees become telepathic, and they create mystery schools. And this goes back 5,000 years, because they start to be able to empathize with people in ways that most humans can't. And they learn it from the bees. So I did all this research, and like the most scientific research will say, the 200,000 bees choose 4 cells to feed royal jelly to nourish queens. And you're like, how? How do 200,000 bees decide on 4 cells? 200,000 people couldn't decide on anything.
Right.
Right. Like, and so I came out of that. I did all this research. I became obsessed with bees, but I had a bird feeder outside my bedroom window, and I'd never seen a bee out there. The morning after I came out of that whole weird visionary emotional experience, all around the water was a circle of bees, like little pearls on a string. And they were there every day. From then on, hives of bees started setting up all around my house. I went out, I would play with them. They never hurt me. I knew they wouldn't sting me. It was a very strange experience, but that one is absolutely literal.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Janice in our office, our event coordinator, is extremely connected to bees.
Right?
She just loves everything. Even her license plate is bee. You know?
Once you get hooked on them, there's an energy around those creatures that is so wise, so magical.
It's so interesting, because I've always been a little bit afraid of bees, because my mother was highly allergic. Every time she got stung by a bee, it was like a race to the hospital. But since the book, we have a lot of bees in our yard with different like flowers, and
cool.
I just become like so much more like relaxed around them.
Oh, that's great.
Like just relaxed around them. Okay, next question. All righty. So I'm interested, this is from Kathleen. I'm interested in the relationship between Diana and Marvin Piper and how he seemed to connect with her as a child. He recognized her extraordinary intelligence, and I was wondering the significance of this. And they're meeting again at the end of the book when he was with her son, Devin, and he understood the great mother that Diana is. And then someone said they had the same, well, Barbara said she had asked herself about that too.
Right. So Diana looks at this guy and she thinks there's something about him. And she climbs out the window and goes off to find a stray dog. But she's thinking, oh, there are other people who aren't normal. There are other people like me. What he is, Marvin Piper is code for, he's Pan. He's the god of nature. He's the divine masculine. So there are gods running around all over this world that she's in. And he represents the god Pan. And when they meet at the end, he's been looking for her because the divine masculine and the masculine principle of nature loves the divine feminine and recognizes that it's being destroyed by the culture we have now, even our global culture. There are many subcultures, but globally, we're pretty much just trashing everything. So he's been panicked that she's lost altogether. And this is one way I wanted to say, you know, there are good men and there are men who are listening to nature. And Devin, he's the son of an Indian sitar player, one night stand, but he's Indian for a reason. Devi in Hindi means angel. So he's Diana's son. He's got a lot of this divine natural power in him. So the next book brings in a lot more men with this. This was about the first step, I think, in the healing of the world is to sort of resurrect the divine feminine, the principle of nurturing and healing as opposed to killing and dominating as ways of existing in the world. So that's what he is. He's Pan, the god of nature.
Oh, that just melts my heart, Martha. It just melts my heart. Okay. Okay. Wow. You guys were getting so much insight to the book.
It's all
we're doing this. Okay. So Barbara Gonzalez writes, I had read that this book is the first of a series. I read the second book, Maelstrom. She read somewhere that the second book, Maelstrom, will deal with the awakening of the masculine consciousness. So would Diana's book be about the awakening of the divine female consciousness? If we are under the unawakened male consciousness, what would the awakened male consciousness be like? I think you just kind of answered that.
Spotted, Barbara. Excellent job. So yeah,
Yes.
in the divine feminine. And the awakened male consciousness, it's interesting. I think, I don't want to give away too much, but I will say that throughout my coaching career, I've worked with men, and it breaks my heart because the culture shoves them into these little boxes and makes them do these jobs. Their bodies, the male body was meant to be outdoors, moving, building things, inventing things, creating things, as female bodies are. But there's something about, I was at a Navajo blessing way ceremony once, and I watched the young men of the tribe, teenagers. They were putting up this huge teepee, like 40 feet tall, 20 feet in diameter. And they were all working together, and they had to exert so much physical energy. And they were like getting these huge lodge poles up and running around it with a rope. And I watched them move, and it was so beautiful. And I thought, this is how every teenage boy should be experiencing life. This is in their bodies. And then there was so much love and veneration for the babies and the grandmothers and the mothers. And the divine masculine lives in a state of joyful exploration of nature and the companionship of the divine feminine without competition. They're both needed to make life, right?
Wow.
So yeah.
Oh, well, you just described my husband, Jeff.
Oh, it's so great. Aren't they wonderful?
He loves just Bill. I have this 12-foot, I'm looking at it right now, this 12-foot bookcase that he envisioned from floor to ceiling. And that's made out of mahogany. And he just went for it. And he just went for it. Here, I'll give you a little shot of this.
So cool.
And he,
Bam, there it is.
Yeah. with lights in it and everything. And
Wow.
and I think you know what he does. He works with his hands. He's a chiropractor, nutritionist kind of dude. And he rides and rides and rides his bike out in the mountains, and just, so he's really, that's interesting. And I don't think he ever connected to that part of himself as well. That's beautiful. Okay. What do we got next here? Diana seems to suffer from a dissociative disorder. Since we are Diana, are we too suffering from a dissociative disorder in that we have multiple personalities? Diana, the boar, the snake, Roy, and we need to learn to find our true self that will bring us the peace we are all striving for?
Beautifully observed again. I really see all of these as, in some ways, I wrote the book as what my daughter calls a psychography, a psychological, she believes that all books are psychographies, an intellectual self-portrait of the author. So I was very conscious that Roy is me. Like, I made him a life coach for a reason, right? Absolute worst aspects of myself in my worst moments, right? When I was just like, I got to get on Oprah and all of that stuff. And it wasn't good, and it wasn't me, but it was part of me. So I think that we all have various aspects of self. She's definitely dissociative because she really believes she's garbage and she's actually a goddess. But everyone is divine energy. So everyone is God or goddess. To the extent we don't know that we are divine, I believe we are dissociated from our true selves. And I think that the only people I've known who are actually not dissociated from their true selves are Eckhart Tolle, whom many of you may know, and Byron Katie, who's another spiritual teacher who is fully awake. They see themselves truly and wholly. But we all have these various fragments, and the way to gather them is to watch them all and love them all, even the evil ones, even the worst of them. I had a great time with Roy. And by the way, I made him up before Trump ever started running for president.
Oh.
And I just was like, nobody's going to believe a reality star, TV star would go
for president, right?
Yeah, like even to have a legitimate chance at running, I just thought that's never going to happen. Can I tell you something else? Oh, this is very weird. The second book, Maelstrom, is about a global pandemic that it has its epicenter in New York and preferentially kills adults rather than children. I'm not kidding you.
It's obvious, and you're calling in these. I mean, it doesn't surprise me knowing who you are.
No, I think
you're really calling in all this information prior to it happening.
Yeah, there are nights when I'm like, I made it all myself.
Did I create it? Oh my God.
Oh, when was I in China?
Oh, that's great. Okay. All right. Rosemary says, my question is, within Diana's process of awakening, she had many steps forward and a few backward within each level of awakening. Do you think for others, the process of awakening is similar, that it requires patience and there are levels of awakening illustrated by a few steps forward, then some backwards?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that every one of us is born wanting to know the truth about ourselves, and that sometimes we wake up to it a little bit. Like when you're with someone who's truly loving, you may wake up to it a little bit, go into the wrong environment, start to believe you're not good, and you fall away from it again. So you go forward and back. The tasks, I thought, would very obviously follow the Ayurvedic chakra thing. So the first, if you read through the chapter about the first task, all the colors are red. Second one, they're all orange and yellow. And I followed the color scheme of the chakras going up. So yeah, I think in the ancient traditions, there are many instructions, especially in Asia, but also in traditional cultures from all over the world. I find these guidebooks for waking up, and some of them don't even have written language, but they still have guiding instructions for how to wake up. And ultimately, they're all talking about the same phenomenon, which is called awakening in Asia, but people describe it in the same terms at all periods of history using the same descriptive metaphors, the same description of emotional sequences and so on, and the same outcome. It's got to be a real phenomenon. I think it's epigenetic, that awakening is something we have the genetic potential to do, but we have to switch we have to flip the gene on, which is something, epigenetics are characteristics that we're born with, but they can be switched on or off. So everybody moves toward it. But there comes a moment, and this is where Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie got. They got there through suffering. You can get there a number of ways, but you get to the place where, as Nisargadatta Maharaj says, the apple just falls from the tree and boom, you can never go back. You know who you are. Right. And you'll never fit back in your old way of being again. And I actually think Eckhart Tolle says this is a time when this is going to start happening to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I used to think, nah, but now I think, yeah. Why? I mean, why not imagine it? Why not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And do you think that process takes a tremendous amount of discipline? This is my own question. A tremendous amount of discipline over and over again, taming the snake, so to speak, taming the ego.
That's one way, but you just can't tell. I mean, Ramana Maharshi he was like sitting in math class when he was 16 and he just woke up for no reason. You know, I mean, we just do not know. We don't know why Jesus was apparently fully awake when he was 30. We don't know why the Buddha had to go the path of indulgence and the path of asceticism and finally the middle path. All we do know is that if you scrupulously sift through the detritus in your mind and heart to what feels most true, you will encounter all your demons, but eventually get to your truth, your deep core truth. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a process of seeking integrity. There are many methods. The next book I wrote that is nonfiction and self-help is called The Way of Integrity, because it's how to wake up, I think. But you have to go through years of effort. Eckhart Tolle just went to sleep and woke up in the morning. I don't know. I wish it would happen to me. I'm fine. I've been crying for years. It didn't happen to me.
You're pretty damn close, Miss Martha.
I feel better than I did.
Okay. So Melinda is asking some use of the language on page 232.
That's specific.
Right, you have to go to the page, right? Post Diana's regress, having accepted the Roy ego to return, myself, for the first time since they've embarked on the tasks, refers to her as Diana, not an endearment. Is this an intentional use of language? The Diana label representing her regression back into humanness? Oh, okay. And there's a second part to that question, but go ahead with that.
Her true self now knows that she is Diana Archer, the young woman, and she is Diana, the Greek goddess, and she is something unknowable as well. So yeah, that's the first time she and the boar have exactly the same set of knowledge. And that's, before that, the boar knows who she really is, but the human doesn't. Uh-huh. And yeah, and my whole premise is when you are ready to die, you see an animal. This is just in my little fantasy world. You see your spirit in the form of an animal. So the first time, it's when Diana is injured and dehydrated and she's waiting to die. And when she truly gives up on all of human life, so she's totally released her ego, that's when she can see the boar for the first time. She can interact with it. Mm-hmm. And the second time is when she is in, I hope you all got that warm, dark lake at the heart of the cave is death. It is nothingness. There is no sensation. There is no light. There is nothing. The one thing she's decided is she would rather die than go back to serving evil. And she's ready to die. And that's why her soul comes up to her again. Is when we really let go of everything we thought we were, boom, magic happens. Yeah.
Oh.
So that. Okay. That was the last. Somebody told me, I wish she'd gotten out of that herself. Why did she have to have rescue by Deus Ex Machina, which means the God from the machine? Because it is Deus Ex Machina, because I believe in Deus Ex Machina. I had a near-death experience. I really believe that when we finally give it up and die, you see the God force and you're fine. And it fixes everything.
Yeah, we just go into nothingness, into just beingness, being.
Well, pure love, pure light, like
Pure love.
certainly very, very alive and aware and sensory, and yeah, it's indescribable, but it's so wow. Anything like the taste I had of it, it's wow. I can't.
And what Anita talks about in her books also.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, no way you can describe it.
So what is, okay, I'm going to ask this question last because it's my question. So let me go with somebody else here. Okay. Jean says, I love the book. Thank you. I could see myself in Diana in some ways. For example, when she went back to Roy as me being determined to get a divorce and letting my husband persuade me to wait, allowing him to be back in control. I would like to ask a couple of questions. Is the part about Martha having envisioned her new home in so much detail completely true?
Yep. Absolutely true.
I remember you told that story when we did the True Magic event with you and Liz Gilbert.
Yeah.
And you shared that.
I knew the whole property. I knew the way the houses looked. I knew what the facilities were for horses. I knew the whole place.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but you may have picked up, if you've been tuned in this whole time, a lot of weird stuff happens to me. I was like, oh, why not? Why not this? The thing is, if you open your mind to things being bigger than you thought they were, things get really wonderful. But the thing is, it costs you your worldview. You have to give up everything if you're going to see the world that way. And the reason I think it happens to me is the subject of my first memoir, my first bestseller, which was Expecting Adam, about having my son's diagnosis when I was 24 weeks pregnant, 24 weeks, really close to third trimester. And from the moment I became pregnant with him, I started having psychic experiences, and I was getting my third Harvard degree, and I was not into psychics, and I was not into life coaches. Like, I was far on the other side of the spectrum. But when he was diagnosed, and I could have had a really late term abortion, which is so traumatic. And if somebody's out there has had to do that, I am so like right there with you. And I do not believe one solution for all. No, you do what's right for you. And I'm all the way behind you. But I couldn't do the termination. So instead I had to grieve the loss of the baby I expected. And they kept telling me I'd look at books about people with Down syndrome, and they did not make me happy. Mm-hmm. And I was so grief-stricken and so sad and so sick that I finally said, I put the books down and I said, you know what? I'm just going to pretend anything that'll take me out of this continuous physical and emotional agony. And I tried a lot of things. Like, I could miraculously heal the Down syndrome. Didn't work. It wasn't really true. It didn't work. And then I got to, the world may be much more magical than I've ever been led to believe, because I'm having these psychic experiences and they seem to be related to this little guy. And maybe nothing that I've been taught to believe is rational goes far enough to explain reality. Mm-hmm. Maybe the mystical is also real.
Right.
And I threw open the door instead of believing only what was proven true, which is impossible because nothing could be proven true, because we could all be dreaming right now, right? I decided to believe everything until it was proven false to my satisfaction. And so, bam, the worldview, the doors blew off my worldview. And I've been in a sort of magical world ever since, but it cost me everything. I mean, the level of psychological pain I went through to get there, I think that's what we have to give up. It's not easy, but man, if you can do it, or if you can allow life to do it for you, like let the pandemic do it for you. If you're afraid and you don't know the future and you don't have any income and you don't know what's going to happen, you can either sit down and go, okay, what have I been taught to do in this situation? Oh, I haven't been taught to do anything, because nobody's ever seen exactly this kind of situation. What if you said, I will give up everything I believe and expect to imagine a future that is beautiful, a future that makes my heart sing, even if it sounds crazy to my mind. you guys, we have so many facilities. These bodies are like magical tools. I always say it's like we have, if you gave someone a Macintosh with all the bells and whistles, a computer, and you said, isn't it great? And I said, yeah, I use it as a placemat. And you're like, it does other things besides hold a plate. And that's what I think the human body is. I think it is an absolute magic wand in three-dimensional flesh. And it's a wireless communication device. And it's connected to the animals. It's connected to the bees. It's connected to every person, to each other. And we're all connected to something divine. And when we start playing with that, the third book in this series is how when the divine feminine awakens and then the divine masculine awakens, then just maybe we can create a world of harmony and sharing life instead of destroying it and ultimately ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing about that.
That was like it. That was like it.
It's
in a nutshell.
But the only thing I got to show you what I already did.
That was so perfect. And it was so perfect for me to hear today.
I already have the cover of the next book. Can you see this?
Oh, that's gorgeous.
There's a man and he's standing in this forest.
Oh.
And this is actually the forest around where I live in Pennsylvania. But it's painted on the architecture of a cathedral. So here's the rosette and the arches that go above. And he's standing there looking straight up because he's in the cathedral of God. And that's where the divine masculine ends up. And the only thing I could think of that would free the divine masculine would be a plague centered in New York City.
I can't even believe that's so profoundly synchronistic and psychic. It's just you're tuning into the psychic energy of the universe. I mean, it's obvious because you've been writing this book way before this happened. I know that. Yeah, that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Now, are you the painter? Are you the artist?
Mm-hmm.
Martha, I didn't know that.
I do that. I like to play with my hands. I like to play with my hands, but I'm also really visual, and that's why I could see the ranch. I could draw the ranch. I know it sounds incredible.
No, it doesn't sound. It sounds beautiful and real and wow.
And I found it, and I knew I'd found it because it looked exactly like it, and it cost more than all my money. So I was like, I don't know what to do. I went there. I offered all my money. They laughed. I went home. I was ashamed. And I went off to Africa, which is a really magical place for me. And I sort of tried to let it all go. So I finally did that. And I came back and went to look at another ranch. And another realtor took me back to my ranch, the one I would buy. And I said, no, I can't afford this. And he said, well, let me go back to the owners. Went back with exactly the same offer. And I didn't know what they would do. But in the morning, I went back. I was living in Phoenix. I went back to Phoenix. I woke up in the morning, and every morning I would wake up and I would be on this ranch in California before I opened my eyes, and I could see everything. And then I would open my eyes and be in Phoenix, and I would just be like, blah, blah, blah. I was more on the ranch than I was in Phoenix. But that morning I woke up and this Florence and the Machine song was playing in my ears, but loud, like loudly. It was like there was a radio in the room. And I thought it was called The Dark Days Are Over, but it's not. It's called The Dog Days Are Over. And the dog days mean they're really hot days in the summer. And Phoenix was I was so tired of being hot. Love you, Phoenix, but
we're starting in on it. I know.
Yeah. And I was like, and so I listened to the lyrics to the song go, the dog days are over. The dog days are done. Can you hear the horses? Because here they come. Because that's what I did. I went to the ranch. I got some horses. I was like, there's so many ways the magic is reaching us all the time.
And we just have to pay attention to it.
Yeah. And not the thing is you can't attach too much to it because then you start acting crazy. If I am psychic, therefore every little thought in my head has to have special attention. I'm going to create my own religion and all that. Well, that doesn't work. That gets really dark. So what you have to do is hold it all so lightly, but hold the culture's view of reality as lightly as you hold the magic. So what will happen? It will go into a deep depression. It will destroy economies everywhere. There will be massive suffering. That's one way to imagine it. I don't not believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I also won't believe it. Or this plague could awaken everybody and we'd all end up recreating the Garden of Eden. I don't believe that, but I don't not believe it.
Right.
I spend quite a lot of time not believing it.
Or it could just be what we need to begin to awaken the masculine energy in the world. Because there's a lot of there's you know, that heavy, what I'm talking about, the masculine energy, that heavy ego energy, whether it's, you know, in a female body or a male body, doesn't matter. Yeah,
we
right.
all have it. Like I said, Roy was me as much as Diana was me, or the pig was me. It's all of us.
Right.
We all share everything. We're all one.
The symbology, that everything that you've described, and there were some things I didn't get. I didn't get that the tunnel in the lake was death. So I'm really glad you explained that.
Yeah, that's why
I love that, jumping into the book. Okay, so there's one more question we have. Well, actually two, including mine, but it's an easy one, I think. Please tell us how the story came to you, your writing process, and how it may have differed from the writing process from your nonfiction books. And tell us about the sequel. Well, we've talked about the sequel.
A little bit.
But I think we've answered that. But if you want to add anything to it.
Yeah, I moved to the ranch, and the day I got there, it was my birthday, my 50th birthday. And someone gave me a session with a psychic for my birthday. So I called this psychic and I was like, oh, please. And the first thing he said was, did you just buy a property with a shrine on it? And I was like, actually, there's a shrine to a dead horse that I just discovered hiking through the forest. I said, yeah. And he said, it wants a labyrinth. And I said, there's someone who just showed up and offered to build a labyrinth. She's right out there now. And he said, are you kidding me? Like he said, I thought that had to be a metaphor. No, it had a lot. So that was kind of a direct hit, because you could know I'd bought a property. You could guess there was a shrine, because I'm kind of that kind of girl. But a labyrinth right now, that's a pretty solid hit. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, I'm listening. And he said, well, you're supposed to write another book. And I was like, I am so tired of writing books. And he said, no. 3 parts. First is awakening the divine feminine. Second, awakening the divine masculine. Third, they save the world. Just allegories. And I was like, okay, that sounds simple enough. But I didn't really know what to do. And I went out, and every day I would get out, put galoshes on over my pajamas, because we were at the edge of a national forest. There was no one there. So I just tramped through the forest in my pajamas, tracking animals. And I started tracking this wild boar. There was a wild boar who came onto my property. They live in California. Hunters brought them from Russia. And I tracked it for a couple of days. And on the second day, I tracked it in a circle and realized that when I had started tracking it, it was actually standing in the forest looking at me. And its little feet were right together where it had stood. And then it followed me. So I was tracking it and it was following me. And I could feel that it was a trickster. I could feel how intelligent it was. And I started talking to it. And then I found out that it is considered bad luck in Ireland to mention a pig to a fisherman. This is the stuff of great literature.
Don't mention a pig to a fisherman.
This is true. So it's bad luck to mention a pig to a fisherman. So what did they call pigs? They called them themselves. And I thought, oh my God, there's a creature that's been allowed to be its real self. It hasn't been labeled anything but itself. So maybe this is itself. Maybe this. And then I thought, divine feminine, pig gets to be itself. Women are never allowed to be themselves. Okay, what if that wild boar, blah, 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 and it all came out of that.
That is fabulous. I love the way your mind works, Martha.
Well, the thing is, I take my life in that direction too. Like, buy a ranch, sure, I'll go. I did not have the money. I went anyway. Spend a year doing nothing but tracking wild boars. All right. I really threw normal life out the window many years ago, and the result is really fun. I invite you all to join me.
If there's one really like there's many, many potent messages in this book, but if there's one biggest takeaway, what would that be?
That when you tell the truth, you will realize that you are pure love and that you are purely loved. The fifth of the 7 tasks is just tell the truth. And that's the scene when the boar finally gets Diana to question her own thoughts about herself and see through them. That's the first time she puts her arms around the boar and says, I love you myself. So she loves herself in that moment. And the truth about you is that you are divine, that you are a God, goddess energy incarnate, that everything around you is God, goddess energy incarnate, and that everything loves you and that you are worthy of everything's love. So and that's why I started working with this thing, integrity. And my next book is just about telling the truth inside yourself till you get to that space. And then you're awake, at least in that moment.
Martha Beck, you have rocked all of our worlds.
You have rocked mine. It's so much fun to be here with you guys talking about it and showing my pictures. I feel like a little kid. Look, put this on the fridge.
Well, I know that we are all waiting with bated breath. I'm going to actually just flip my screen for a second to actually look at the Facebook and see if there's any other questions. I don't think so. It just looks like everybody's thanking you, telling you we're all connected. Olivier is talking about awakening for humanity, end of cold industry capitalism, goosebumps. Yep. Do you think this is the law of attraction when you were talking previously? I mean, everybody's just so beautiful, loving your book, loving the conversation. Yeah. These are the messages.
Love. That's step 4. Connect your heart to all hearts. And look what you've done, Liz Dawn. You've connected all our hearts today. And that I just thank you so much for doing this and for having your radiance and your kindness and for getting these folks together. You're connecting all hearts.
Are you kidding? I love doing this. I love just bringing the party together. That's my role, is just throwing the party.
It's a wonderful party.
Throwing the party for humanity. Okay, before all of you sign off and before we say a big I love you to Martha, for those of you that want to be involved in the book club and involved in the conversation and get all of our announcements and the next book that's coming up, I'm going to, hold on a second, I'm going to pin you've got to sign up. Go to the website. I just posted it, celebrateyourlife.com/soulfest-book-club. You'll just get on the list so we can just send you all the announcements of what's going on. Make sure and click that link right now and just put your name and your email address in there so we don't have to keep chasing everybody on Facebook. It'll be so much easier for us. So please do that so we can have a more cohesive group. So you know what the next book is, you know when the conversation's coming up, and the minute your next book is out, you have got to let us know.
I sure will. I'll stay connected, and yeah, we've got ideas brewing, so it's all good. And I'm just so full of gratitude for all of you.
Thank you so much, Martha. I love you so much.
And you guys, it's all going to be okay. Like really, truly, this whole thing, it's all part of it. It's going to be so good.
Oh, we need to hear from Martha's mouth. Absolutely. All right, everybody. I'll see you guys in a couple of days. And thank you so much, Martha.
Thank you. Bye-bye.